and start.
What's the order we'll be tasting in?
So sorry, Robin, and I forgot to put them in. We're going to do the.
Thank you.
Oh, no, you're very welcome. And I'll put it in the chat room right now. We're going to do the Drapier first, and then the Tettinger, aka Tettinger. So I think I've spent too many years saying Tettinger. And then we're going to do the Charles Heitzig, and I think I actually can spell it right. Here we go. Okay, let me make sure there's nobody waiting in the waiting room. I'll keep my eye on it. First of all, chin chin to everyone. Cheers with whatever you have in your glass.
Cheers.
Whether it's one or all three, you can start sipping on whatever you like, but I want to hear a little noise with that too. Here's to an extraordinary 8 going on 9 months of this adventure living. What's that?
Excitement.
Of this excitement, yes. And we started doing virtual tastings in April. So here we are, 8+ months doing this. And I want to thank you from my little plum heart for your support and your company. It's been terrific. We've got established friends. I hate saying old friends, right? Though, mature friends or friends of long standing. And then we've also picked up lots of new friends over the last few months. So thank you very much for your company, your friendship, your support. Happy to see everyone tonight. This is our last tasting of the year. We will be taking a little bit of a break and rejoining you on January 21st with sort of, pivoting big time from this tasting tonight. We'll be doing best steals post-holidays, something that we historically do that time of year. And I already have a question in the chat room. Thank you for that, Robin. What is the advantage of the glass shape from Charles Heitzig? It's really classic. It's a tulip glass, but you'll notice it's got a little bit of indentation at the bottom. So the bubbles, which are really dissolved in the champagne, get to, generate a little more easily than in a rounder bottom. But you'll notice it's not a flute glass. And many champagne houses these days, it doesn't mean you have to get rid of your Baccarat crystal, but have gone to more of a classic wine glass shape because, it shows it's wine with bubbles and it shows off the fragrance, the flavor, it opens up. And there's nothing wrong, especially if you're tasting multiple bottles tonight and you pulled them out of the fridge, go ahead and pour them. They warm up just the way still wine does. So I've got the Plum Tribe joining me tonight, same as last week. We've got Denny Walsh and Rod Johnson,
Hi, guys.
Our beverage coordinators from Oakland County and Ann Arbor, respectively. We've got the faithful, wonderful wine-loving Mike Pfeiffer representing Ann Arbor. And we've got input. Host video is frozen for us. I don't know what that means. Is that, I don't think we control it from our end. Someone said, so give us another second. I think it may be internet access on your end. We have lurking in spirit or with us in spirit, other wine team leaders, because we have Patrick Mulrooney, who opined earlier today with me on the phone about his selections beyond these 3 that we're tasting tonight. And we've got Jorge Lopez Chavez, who also sent us a handful. There is a PDF, a list, which if you looked at your email before you got on, that's a list just like with Cabernet, where we're giving you a handful of options in each of the stores, wherever you like to shop, that they have in stock and that they feel strongly about. And we're going to review that as we go along. And if you're wondering what that looks like, hold on just a minute. Let's see if I actually have it. I do. Yay. So it's about 4 to 5 from each of the stores. And Mike and Rod will talk about Ann Arbor. I'll talk about Bloomfield, and Denny will talk about the selections from West Bloomfield. As far as what we're tasting this evening, we went the opposite of esoteric. We did some houses that we have in good supply in all of our stores. And we're just tasting Michigan tonight. Tomorrow night, we actually have a champagne tasting for our Chicago store, but there was such a departure in terms of what was on hand that we decided to do them separately. But the champagnes we're highlighting tonight are delicious, accessible in terms of we're not going to run out of them. And also they make absolutely terrific gifts, and they over deliver in their price points. What else to tell you? We're going to review that list together. You can start sipping on whatever you like now. If you choose to open more than one, the only downside is there's no private preserve yet for champagne, though, and I don't have it on me. The gentleman who makes private preserve is about to come out with one called Preserve, I think, or Fizzerone, something like that. And I've tried it. He sent me a bottle to check it out, and it's stunning. I mean, I kept something with the champagne stopper for a month. It was Raventos, gentlemen, and it tasted just as fresh as when I preserved it. So hold the thought. The only other downside of opening multiple bottles of bubbly is there's no really great universal champagne stopper, unless, gents, do you know of one? Because, you know, that's the downside, is often you've got a champagne stopper on hand, but depending on how they've engineered the lip, it doesn't always work, especially if they're expensive, stylish bottles. Would you agree with that?
Madeline, we have something that we use.
Yes.
Can I?
Yep, I can see it. Mm-hmm.
You can see it?
Yep. No, and that is a relatively standard champagne stopper, but I find that sometimes they may not work. It depends on the size of the lip or the shape of the lip. So that said, you're just going to have to drink everything tonight. No, I'm
Finish it.
3 bottles. Yeah.
Well, the bubbles will actually hold for several days. You can actually put a little bit of either cloth, or it might sound horrifying to you. Sometimes I'll just put paper towel and put it in the fridge, and it's not as good as a stopper, but it'll keep some of the CO2 from escaping. So that said, I think we need to start sipping, don't you? And by the way, I'm going to be curious at any point in time, if you can tell us what you're eating and what your favorite foods are with champagne, that would be terrific. I mean, we can all say the company line is that great sparkling wine goes with everything, but I'd like to know some of the specific everythings that you've had with bubbles. Kelly Green, it's terrific to see you, by the way. Cheers. So, yay, I'm going to take one more little sip. I have the rosé open here in front of me. And I hadn't had it before, and it's absolutely wonderful. So we're going to start with actually just talking about champagne in general for a moment, if you don't mind. And I'm not giving a big lecture. I just, oops, I have to admit a couple of people. Hold the boat. There we go. I just found some neat slides, and I'd like to show them. By the way, looking at this, when you're opening a bottle, get it too cold, though the freezer is always a really bad idea because you might forget it. And never forget when you're opening it that once you turn the cage, and it's 6 turns, it's a universal standard, you should push back on that cork and turn the bottle, not the cork, and let it ease itself out at a 45-degree angle, or you're going to lose some of those gorgeous bubbles. This was a shot, I don't even know whose Gruyere this is, whose chalk cellars these are in Champagne, but I thought it was a stunning view, because this is something that is a standard when you visit the Champagne district. We're in chalk country. And when you put your hand right up against that wall, it's cool and damp, and you pull your hand away and it's white. So this was a wonderful shot of riddling racks, though a lot of the Champagne houses have gone to automatic riddling racks. But what is happening here is the yeast that is used to kick off the second fermentation in the bottle is spent. They're the lees, and they're turning the bottles to ease that into the neck, which they can then freeze and expel and top off with what they call liqueur d'expédition that can be sweetened or not. And here's you'll notice it says méthode classique. We all got used to saying méthode champenoise, which means the champagne method. But now in Europe, méthode classique, in Italy, metodo classico, and such are being used officially. But it's the same process. And the short version is you're making base wine in either a barrel, which is neutral. We're not talking new French oak, or tanks more commonly. And then you are blending the various lots. You're putting it in the bottle that you're staring at right now. You add a little bit of yeast and sugar to kick off a second fermentation with a temporary cork, a crown cap, and that CO2 has no place to go. So it is dissolved in the wine. And then you have to get that, there's an automatic riddling rack, by the way, that I think were invented by the cava producers in Spain. And this is the one that Madame Clicquot and her cellar master have the legendary credit for inventing. And then finally you disgorge, meaning you take off the temporary cork, top it up, and give it its permanent cork. So that's the short version of the champagne method. And per usual, here we are, the northernmost growing region in France, and a stone's throw from Paris and a stone's throw from Burgundy. This actually is part of the Champagne region, but it's disconnected. And then here's Burgundy proper. And within Champagne itself, we've got the Montagne de Reims. Now, I have to tell you, the famous Champagne grapes are Pinot Noir, Chardonnay, and Pinot Meunier, another red grape. They're grown everywhere, but the Montagne de Reims, and that's how it's pronounced, I like to hold my nose when I say it, Reims, is famous for Pinot Noir, especially their Grand Cru vineyards. The Valais de la Marne has a mixture, but more Meunier than the other regions. And the Côte de Blanc is famous for Chardonnay. We've got the Côte de Cézanne here, and then we've got the Côte de Bar, which is off the screen. And then I just thought I'd show a few pictures of the land. It's just really beautiful. This is in Ailly, which is a village in the Valais de la Marne. That's that central area. And the thing about the Champagne district, with the exception of the Aube, the Côte de Bar, is there are vineyards everywhere. And there's actually been some controversy about expanding them or not. So they're using whatever land is available to them. In the Côte de Bar, the vineyards are fractured. They're not contiguous the way these are. These are vineyards in the village of Epernay. I just think it's glorious, and also the site of these baskets. And then this is a shot from the Montagne de Reims. You're in a vineyard in Ambonnay with a view of Bouzy. So just beautiful, beautiful landscape. Gently rolling hillsides. So we're going to start with the Drapier. And what's interesting about this family, and it is family owned and operated, is that this is the current generation here. And this lady, Charlene, is the chef de cave. She runs the cellar. And these are her brothers, Hugo and Antoine. Michel, Andre, and Sylvie are the previous generation. But, Charlene actually gave an interview recently about being a female chef de cave, because there's some other wine growing regions in the world where, women have come to prominence over the last, couple decades, notably actually Italy. There seemed to be a generation that were sun bereft in Tuscany and Piedmont. But in Champagne, this has been a slower change. And she comments it's still very hard being a female chef de cave. I have 3 male colleagues and they still think I'm the gentle blonde that's more focused on communication than the technical side of things. But there are a lot of women poised to take over their houses in the next 10 years. So interesting to note. I guess that little bit of feminism in me wanted to address that. This is a really cool shot. So we're in their village. It's a small village in the Côte de Bar, which is in the Aube department. So this is very close to Burgundy, right up against Burgundy. And this is where the vineyards are more fractured. They're not as contiguous as northwest in the Montagne Rennes, the Côte de Blanc, the Vallée de la Marne. And what's neat about this area is that it was very controversial. When Champagne was officially classified in 1908, this area was excluded and there were a lot of riots regarding this. They finally were included in the Champagne classification, but they have no Grand or Premier Cru vineyards. And, you know, some people will say that's because they're not, you know, their vineyards are hard to classify because they are not clustered together. It's a broken up landscape. 70% of Drapier's vineyards are Pinot Noir. And evidently they claim that one of their ancestors was the first to plant Pinot in the region, maternal grandfather of Michel, the present head of the house. They have two cellars, and this is interesting. These are the Cistercian cellars that were built, you know, they were constructed by the monks from the Clairvaux Abbey. And these are not chalk cellars. You'll notice they're stone cellars, but these date back to 14th century, give or take. And this is where they store some of their wine, notably their large bottles. These folks specialize in large bottles. Oh, here we go, dating back to the 1100s. I did this work earlier today. And then this bottle, by the way, which I had to look this up, the Melchizedek, I can't even pronounce it. This is 40 bottles. And to put it in a frame of reference, there's a 750 milliliter bottle. The largest bottle I knew of is a 15 liter, 20 bottle Nebuchadnezzar. And this is also called a Midas bottle. You see it very rarely. It's 30 liters or 40 bottles. Here's the takeaway. Drapier ferments all of their champagne in the bottle. So they're not transferring wine from 750s to these larger bottles or from magnums to these larger bottles. This looks, you know, a lot more sort of rustic than some of the chateaus in Champagne itself. These are their cellars in Rennes that they purchased, I don't know when they bought it. They were existing cellars in Rennes, but I just wanted to show you the depth of these cellars, how beautiful they are. And this is where they put many of their bottles to age. They're very experimental. I've never seen this. Guys, have you ever seen this? This is a wooden egg. We've seen cement eggs. And the whole issue with fermenting and eggs, and these, by the way, are all neutral wood, is that the wine kind of rotates by itself. But they patterned this and built this wooden egg based on their inspiration by the cement eggs that are the fashion these days. I thought that was neat. I'd never seen that before. Oops, I'm going to stop sharing. And Rod or Denny, do you want to talk about how the wine's showing?
Sure, I've had many bottles of the Drapier down through the years. It's always been a favorite of mine. Right now, I have to say it might be the top value in Champagne if you look at the price versus sparkling wines across the world. Pinot Noir is the story here. I think it's 80% Pinot Noir.
70, give or take, depending on depending on what the base vintage is, but it's always over, you know, it's always over 65, 70% Pinot, right?
And if you think about Champagne, it's a white wine, and everybody naturally thinks of Chardonnay as being that grape, but Pinot Meunier and Pinot Noir are both red grapes, and they make up, I think on average, probably more than half of most of the champagnes out there. So what you're looking at is it goes against the natural thinking, but Pinot Noir works very well. And I think Trappier is a very good ambassador of why it does. It gives the wine a little more roundness and charm, and you get the red fruits, and that readily comes through. The Chardonnay adds some of the lime and stone fruits. There's a little bit of even quince and peaches in the wine. So you're getting a nice melange of different flavors at the same time you get a nice charming roundness of flavor. Always very generous, very versatile too. So if you're one of the things I like to have with champagne is smoked fish, and this is one of those champagnes that does very well. I could also see cold roast beef.
Ooh,
Somebody out there said oysters. I don't know if oysters is where this is, but I think I also saw chicken wings. I think this champagne would be right there with all of that. But I think its calling cards are the roundness and the charm and those nice little red fruits tied to stone
Deviled eggs
fruits.
on toast.
Eggs on toast, poached eggs on toast.
Yeah.
Yum, why not?
Scrambled.
And this, by the way, Rod, to your point about the roundness, this does not have a low dosage. It has a
Return it
normal
6
dosage.
Heard it 6 times.
So to that point, some champagne houses will brag about how the dosage is when we refer to it, when we say a low dosage or an extra brut or a non-dosage, we're referring to the sweetening agent. Whether there's somewhere between, if it's called an ultra brut or a low dosage, it's usually under 5 or 6 grams per liter of sugar, and up to, I think brut is maybe 10 or 12 these days. They change the specifications for it if it's a normal brut. This they refer to as a normal dosage, so it's not an ultra brut, but it's still, and I found the official stat, it's 80% Pinot Noir. It's just not a Blanc Noir. It's got 15% Chardonnay and a little bit of Pinot Meunier. And I love some of the foods that are coming up. Strawberries dipped in chocolate, yes. Potato chips, yes. Scallops with beurre blanc sauce. All righty. So I think the dark chocolate with strawberries is a great idea, especially with the Pinot Noir based champagne. Anybody else want to opine? Killer value, and I liked reading the statistics about this house.
You haven't finished yours.
Okay.
Because, these people, by the way, not only did they experiment as evidenced by the wooden egg, but they're actually maniacal about very minimal sulfur use. And they play with other things in their caves as well. So this is not lesser by anybody's measure. Robin, you may have to mute because we're getting your background noises, but if you want to speak up, by all means.
Oh, baked brie.
Baked brie, yay. Good idea. Cooked cheese, absolutely, with champagne, and it can be by itself or it can be on cracker crust pizza, right? So let's go on to, okay. Am I supposed to say Taittinger or Taittinger? Because I've been saying Taittinger for so long. Anybody? Anybody speak fluent French? It sure looks like Taittinger. Taittinger. Okay, Taittinger.
I think champagne always if I was going to speak about this later, going through all the names, Champagne is one of the most complex areas in France because its producers have come from Europe, not France. So it's not necessarily a German or French or Swedish or a Swiss name. It's whatever they chose to call themselves. And a lot of people want to change it to a French pronunciation when in fact that may not be it. Yeah, and I when I pronounce some of the wines, I think I'm going to be wrong also. So I allow people to say whatever they want to say. So, the Germans might even say Taittinger, and that might be correct. So we don't really know.
Well, I've been, this is Kelly. I've been to Taittinger, and they provided the appropriate pronunciation, which is Taittinger. So,
Good for you. Okay.
Well, thank you. No, this is wildly useful because, you know, that's how we should pronounce it then. Merci beaucoup. And I'm showing you both of these labels because I had an interesting moment texting the guys today because I've always known their multi-vintage, what used to be called non-vintage brut, but thanks to Krug, we all say non-vintage now, as called Brut La Française. Tétanger, established in Reims. Their website, the Tétanger website, doesn't exist on the website. It says Brut Reserve. So we tracked down the international ambassador for Tétanger, who informed us that this is exactly the same wine, but Brut La Française is strictly labeled this way for the American market, and everywhere else it's Brut Reserve. So you learn something new every day. This is neat, Thibaut, Count of Champagne, because some of you may have had Tétanger's most famous cuvee, their Blanc de Blanc, Comte de Champagne. So this was one of the counts of Champagne, who was actually the king of Navarre, and his big influence was from like 1222 to 1253. And he did go on a crusade in 1239 and brought back two things, rumor has it. He brought back a grape variety that they claimed to be the basis for Chardonnay. And he also brought back a rose, damask rose, that is now the base of most of the roses in the area. They, you know, during his time, a lot of revenue was generated by the culture at this time, which helped fund the expeditions, the Crusade expeditions. Rumor has it that he was a poet and a romantic and fell in love with Blanche de Castile, the queen at the time, who was significantly older than him, but he decided to go on the crusade to prove to her husband that he was faithful to him. So this is interesting. This is the new label for Comte de Champagne Blanc de Blanc, and this is the older label. Jens, have you seen this one? Is this in the stores? The Comte de Champagne. Oh, I know. I wanted to show you one more thing. Do you see this seal? This was the Bose Seal, which now appears either on the label or the neck label of all Tétanger's champagnes. This is the label that I'm familiar with, but they must have made this transition pretty soon, and their bottle shape is a signature for them. This is Pierre Tétanger and a chateau that he acquired near Epernay. And this is the current generation, an older picture and a younger picture. Pierre Emmanuel with his kids, Vitaly and Clovis. Clovis does, I think, international business management, and Vitaly is involved with communication. I'm showing another picture of them. First of all, this is the glamour shot, but also how unique their cellars are. What else to tell you about? Here's another shot of their cellars. I mean, just staggering. You know, when you wonder why champagne is expensive, this stuff stays in their cellar for what? A minimum of 15 months before release, making absolutely no money for them. And in many cases, many more years than that. So it's, you know, a business issue as well. And just to remind us all, Tétanger and actually Pierre Emmanuel, the father, is the chairman of both Domaine Carneros in California. And I didn't know this, a domain in the UK called Evremond. And actually, you know, British champagnes are now the hip thing. I'm familiar with Ridgeview, and Rod and I have done a tasting with Ridgeview and really enjoyed it. Anyone want to talk to the Tétanger style? Rod or Denny or Mike, because I only have the Charles Heitzig open at the moment.
So to me, Tétanger is, I read somewhere, it's the symbol of festivity. So a little quick research I believe it's 40% Chard, 35
Mhm.
Pinot Noir, and 25 Pinot Meunier.
That sounds right, because I did, oh, here it is. Yep, 37 Chard, 48 Pinot, 15 Meunier. Bravo, from 37 different vineyards. Yep.
And Totten J's been around for, not in name, but the production has been around for 300 years. I think the Totten J family took over in the 30s and changed the name to the family name. And it's a big house. It's 5 to 6 million bottles a year, which puts them in top 5 of all the champagne houses production wise. But to me, it's a very expressive champagne. It's floral, it's fruity, it's got notes of peach, white flowers, vanilla, and a bit of honey. The bubbles are fine. It's just a delicious champagne that can be used as an aperitif. You can use it with a number of meals or foods, but this is also the toast champagne. So this is just a fun one to have in the glass.
And it's fair to say it's medium bodied. And again, the dosage is normal, but also to your point, they are the 3rd largest landowners in Champagne. They own a staggering number of vineyards. And that said, there's a whole phenomena of grower champagne, not versus, but, you know, sort of as a counter to these larger houses. It's not a good or a bad thing. When you control, you know, Taittinger controls over half of the vineyards that go into their wines, and they're the 3rd biggest landowner in Champagne. That's a lot of vineyards. And then they have long-term contracts where they're going to dictate farming methods. There's not much Taittinger in the US. It may depend on the store you go to. Have we had supply problems, gentlemen?
We have plenty.
So no worries.
Come on down.
Yeah, come on down.
Come on in.
They're also, and they're very proud to say this, they're, you know, heading in the direction, it's a little tricky in Champagne to do organic or biodynamic viticulture, but these folks are passionate about using very little, if any, herbicides. They have planted grass between their rows, something that's not uniformly done. And this is really neat. Their selection of grapes in their own vineyards are done by Massal selection. They're not planting, you know, they are planting clones that have been specifically determined to make superior wine from other vineyards. And there are a number of them. So you don't have a vineyard planted with the same clone. This is somewhat unusual in Champagne as well. But I think of Taittinger as a fine old friend. Anybody else want to comment on it? Anybody drinking it and want to, okay. The Rudens are drinking it. How's it tasting? Good? Quite dry, soft, medium dry? Good. Okay, I get a thumbs up.
I think if you were to introduce somebody to champagne, Taittinger would be as safe a champagne as you could possibly pick because they use all the grapes. The style is pretty classic. They don't go off to one side or the other. They're kind of right in the middle. It's their finesse and the delicacy that they produce it with, and that is an achievement on their part. But I think the style that they use is as classic as it gets. And if you just think of champagne, I'd always say, well, there's Taittinger. You're always safe there.
They're based in Reims, but you know, they're sourcing grapes from throughout Champagne. And to Rod's point, they have a classic blend of Chardonnay, Pinot Noir, and Pinot Meunier. And to remind us all, you can use red grapes, but if you're removing the juice immediately from the skins, you're not going to get pink wine. Champagne is the only growing region in France where it's legal to produce rosé by the addition of red wine. And this is not some sort of cheat or shortcut. Most of the champagne houses make rosé that way, as opposed to, you know, Saignée, where they're actually, you know, letting the juice turn pink by coming in contact with the crushed skins. What do you think? Should we maybe talk about the options in Ann Arbor on the wine list, or should we go ahead and talk about the Charles Heitzig? Any opinions? Rod, Denny, Mike?
I'm fine.
Either way.
You know what? We're having a good time. Why don't we go ahead and taste the Charles Heitzig? Sound good? You're all well-mannered and well-behaved, so you need to drink a little bit more champagne. We didn't talk about the best way to get pleasure out of it. I will tell you that for me, the bubbles are a little bit of a distraction. That said, this is not a negative thing, but I like to hone in on it with the same structural focus as I pay attention to with still wine. So we're talking, you know, the acidity. We're not talking tannin with any regularity. Sometimes you'll pick it up on a rosé. The alcohol, the weight, the depth of flavor. And it takes me a couple of sips to sort of push the bubbles, the effervescence out of the way, though the mouthfeel of the bubbles is so unique to champagne specifically because it really doesn't come across as bubbles. It's just gently cleansing and mouth-filling. It makes the flavor of the wine swell. The only thing I generally don't do, though sometimes I do it automatically, is swirl it because the CO2 is releasing the aroma in the glass. I might give it a quick little whirl, just if I'm not getting much fragrance. And I, you know, always use a regular wine glass. That's how I drink bubbles. If you hand me a flute of Krug, I will drink it. I will not complain. No worries. So that said, that, by the way, somebody asked me on a private virtual tasting a couple of nights ago what my very favorite champagne is. And we actually have it on here, though not the specific cuvee. It's Krug Grand Cuvee, because I find that, you know, people who are nerds like me love it. And people who are new to champagne, I call them the beloved Aunt Minnies of the world, love it. We have Krug Grand Cuvee in the stores, don't we, gents?
Yep.
No
Yes, we
problem
do.
with
It's
availability.
on the list tonight.
Okay, cool. So here we go. Plum Market, Ann Arbor West. Mike, you're on. This was a really cool selection because I did a little research on them.
So first is Montadan. Been in the market for a number of years now. The Montadan was established in 1891 and was long managed by the founding family. But after 4 generations, the Montadan became part of the Alliance Champagne Group. The brut is 50% Pinot Noir, 35% Pinot Meunier, and 15% Chardonnay. This comes in at about
$35.
$35 a bottle.
Yeah.
It's got nice ratings from Spectator Enthusiast. And it's best described as a little doughy, flinty. It's got a little nutty characteristic to it, but nice flavor, nice bubbles. It's as one of the reviewers said, it's well knit and minerally with a creamy mousse. It's kind of one of my favorites. It's a go-to. It comes in at a really nice price, and I think well worth seeking out. And I think I know at least both Jorge and I carry Montadan right now. So
And mousse, by the way, to remind everyone, is how we refer to the mouthfeel that's born of the bubbles. It's the persistence of the bubbles, the style of the bubbles.
next is Labriere Prologue. This is Grand Cru Extra Brut. This is one of my favorites. I found this last year, almost by luck. But this is Edouard Labriere is the chef de cave. He has been making wine. His family has been making wine mostly in Beaujolais. They have holdings in Burgundy, and he took his belief as to how to make wine from Burgundy and brought it to Champagne. So this is 100% Grand Cru, 100% from Verzenay. It is 70% Pinot Noir, 30% Chardonnay, It comes from 17 different plots in Verzenay that are fermented separately. 85% coming from the 2012 vintage, 15% being from 2010. Verzenay is famous for juice that came or has been part of Dom Perignon for a long, long time. So this, to me, this is a classic champagne. This is fine bubbles. This is it's got the structure of Pinot Noir with I guess the energy of Chardonnay, and I really think this is a fantastic champagne at a nice price point for champagne at $50.
You know, and a couple things here, by the way. Mike's talking about Grand Cru refers to the vineyards that are rated, and Verzenay and Verzy and Verzenay and Bouzy are Grand Cru vineyards. This guy owns the majority of Jacques Prieur vineyards in Meursault. So he also has vineyards in Burgundy and in Cru Beaujolais. I'm not stealing your thunder. I was just excited about this. I'm going to say something because we're going to talk about several extra brutes or brut non dosage or ultra brutes. They're a little bit of a shock when you first take them on your palate, unless you've been chewing, but your palate will get used to the acidity, and that acidity, that laser acidity is spectacular with rich foods. I was excited about this. I really want to try this. Keep going, Mike. Sorry to interrupt.
Camille Sava or Sauve, Grand Cru Brut Rosé Champagne. This is a family-run estate in Bouzy that is better known abroad than in France. 70% of their production is exported. Eugene Sava began estate bottling champagne in 1910, was succeeded by his son Louis and his grandson Camille, and today it's Camille's son Hervé who's in charge of the estate. They own 6 acres of Grand Cru in Bouzy, and the rest of the holdings are kind of spread out a bit in Champagne. This one I discovered through, this is my wife's favorite rosé champagne. This one is the blend is,
all I have is that it's 12% red wine.
it's 12% red wine. I think it's, yeah, I think it's 70%. I think it's 70% Chardonnay, 30% Pinot Noir, but 12% is the Pinot Noir. This is bouquet of blood orange, bread dough, a hint of cinnamon. It's really complex with a lot of citrus zest. It's deep, it's full body, and it's snappy. This is a little bit richer style, but this is a delicious rosé from Champagne that I also highly recommend. And then the last two are brand new to Michigan. This is Agripar, and Pascal Agripar is a 4th generation winemaker, and his domain is in the village of Aviz. He is completely organic. His vines are some of the oldest in the Côte de Blanc, some in excess of 60 years old. The estate was established in 1894 and has been a what you termed a grower champagne since 1894, and they've always labeled under their family name, which is kind of different. Grower champagne kind of became popular, 10, 12 years ago, and it was kind of the thing. The new thing was grower champagne, and a lot of the family estates changed their labels to reflect their names, or the estates. Agripar has done it since the beginning. Pascal shares the ownership with his brother Fabrice. Pascal is humble and soft-spoken, but he's been well known in Champagne. He's kind of an under the radar guy, but he has become internationally known. And one of our wholesalers has been trying to get Agripar in to Michigan for a very, very long time. You could get it on the coast, but you couldn't get anywhere here. We were lucky enough to get Agripar, the very limited amount of Agripar that was available. All 3 of the bottlings, we only have 2 on the list today, but all 3 of the bottlings. The first is the Seven Crus, which is a mix of 90% Chardonnay and 10% Pinot Noir from Premier Cru and Grand Cru vineyards. They are from the 7 villages surrounding Aviz. The second is Terroir, which hails from 100% Grand Cru Chardonnay holdings in Aviz and its neighbors.
So Aviz is a Grand Cru village in the Côte de Blanc that, specializes in Chardonnay. And if you like that sleek, rapier-like, acidity and lift in a Blanc de Blanc, I think that Terroir Blanc de Blanc would be your idea of a good time. Right, Mike?
He also makes 3 vintage holdings under his name, one of which is available to us, Mineral, and then 2 others that are not available in Michigan. I have, as it's new to the market, it's kind of also new to me, but I've a very good friend of mine, and maybe of some of you, Richard Weinberg, is from New York. And Richard is a doctor at U of M, but he is very knowledgeable about champagne, about wine. Coming from New York, he's tasted with many master soms in New York, and he was correct. This is one of the best examples of Côte de Blanc in the world, and this is hard to get, but now that it's here, and I would highly recommend this as a grower champagne and a great example of the Côte de Blanc.
Wonderful. Thank you. You were, per usual, poetic and expressive. Much appreciated. Are you or Rod? Rod, are you jumping in about Ann Arbor North Campus since Jorge's not here? I did a little research on these guys, but I haven't tasted most of them.
Yes, I'll handle the Ann Arbor North. These 4 were picked by Jorge, and a lot of people have dealt with Jorge. He's got opinions, but what he picks is what he likes. And there's pluses and minuses to that. And the pluses is that, he liked it, but minuses, sometimes you could put yourself in kind of a box or a certain style. All 4 of these champagnes are all Pinot Noir dominated. But to Jorge's credit, they all express Pinot Noir in a different way. So it's a very nice setup of what Pinot Noir can be like in a champagne. The first is Devinoge Cordon Bleu Brut Champagne. It's from Epernay. It's been in a house that's been around since 1837. So they're an older house. They've been around forever, classic in style. The cepage is 50% Pinot Noir, 25% Chardonnay, 25% Pinot Meunier from 20 different villages. When I looked at that to me, that spoke, I'm going to like this champagne, which is, it's very soft. It's very easy to like. It uses Pinot Meunier, and every champagne that I've ever had that had a high proportion of that is very friendly. That grape just gives it a charm and friendliness. This is nice, soft, round. It has the lemons and limes. It has a little bit of red fruits. It has a nice mousse to it, but it's just fresh, well-balanced, very classic. I had spoke about Taittinger as being classic. This is another one of those sparklers that you could give to anybody and say, well, that's just champagne. I think it's a very classic house. Price is very, very, I'd say very competitive. Devinoge, they came from Switzerland in 1837. Devinoge is the river that the original house was on in Switzerland. So they brought that name into Champagne with them and have done very well since then. Tonight, I have a bottle of the Andre Clouet in front of me. This is the Silver Cuvee, Brut Nature. Madeline had mentioned non-dosage. Brut Nature is another one of those. So there's no dosage added. Notice at the end is Bouzy. It doesn't say so, but this is a Grand Cru. The next one will be also from Bouzy. Champagne is just like the rest of France. They delineate the vineyards. And if Bouzy is considered a Grand Cru, it's mostly Pinot Noir in terms of that village. this specific cuvee, the silver cuvee, is 100% Pinot Noir. So you're getting what I would call a champagne with an attitude. It's non-dosage, 100% Pinot Noir, and it has personality.
Did you see
It's
what the grower said on the website? I have to interrupt because you guys have to check
Sure.
out this website. It's wild. He describes this as pow, pow with 2 exclamation points.
Yes. Exactly. As I said, it's got attitude. It's crisp, but when the nose has hints of black fruits, spices, anise. This is the one champagne I would say, reserve this for a meal. It is not for the masses. It's for people who have something like, again, I'd say cold roast beef or smoked fish, even pesto dishes. Roast duck would be, roast duck or chicken would be fine with this. But it's just a powerful champagne that one needs to try, put it in your glass, and it just is one of those champagnes that's just a meal in itself. The next wine also is boozy, and now we're going to take a little shift here with Pinot Noir again. Barno, I have, out of everything on this list, I've probably drank more bottles of Barno Grand Reserve than any other one. It is, in fact, my favorite house. I actually highly recommend that. To me, they do it right. This opened my eyes about what grower champagnes were like before. And I've tried this for the last 15, 20 years. And when I heard the term grower champagne, well, what can they be like? Because all of the other houses that style, and then you go to a grower champagne and they have their own personality. So this is 70% Pinot Noir, 33% Chardonnay, and those two grapes kind of balance perfectly what they want to do. So you get the roundness of the Pinot Noir, those little bit of strawberries, but then you get the delicacy and freshness of the Chardonnay. Their approach, they've modernized their approach. It used to be, well, you leave it on the lease for 10 or 8, 10 years before you disgorge it. This has only been on the lease for 2 years. It was disgorged in 2018. And this speaks to the new style of champagne. I think a lot of producers right now want to see freshness and verve and style in their champagne and not so much toastiness. They do make that style in the house. If you buy their vintage, then that's been on the lease for 8 years, but the Grand Reserve is not. So it's fresh, lively, and absolutely delicious. As I said, every bottle I've ever had has just been great for me.
That's a hell of an endorsement. And their rosé is terrific, and their Blanc de Noir are terrific as well, correct? If people can
Yes,
find them.
they do a Blanc de Noir, which is 100% just like the silver from Cuvee. I don't think that's non-dosage, but that's also what I will call a brute of a champagne. It's just, it has to be tried to experience though. It's just a fabulous line. The last on the set here is Stéphane Coquillette. This is, let's see, I believe it's 60% Pinot Noir, and then the rest I believe is Chardonnay. But here's a turn of events here. It's delicate, it's racy, it's stylish. And when you drink it, you're thinking you're drinking something like a Blanc de Blanc, but it just comes from the area of Cuvee, which gives you a more stylish edge to Pinot Noir. So you pick up the cherries and the freshness of that. It's uplifting, it's stylish, it's a summery type of champagne. And again, it's very versatile. It will go with a lot of fairly powerful stuff, but it really is designed for toast and just having a delicious, great time. This is also a grower.
And this is a newer champagne house, right? He started, some of these
well,
guys.
it's fourth generation. So by champagne standards, it's new, but it's been around for a while. This is in the Premier Cru. So it has been rated to in terms of the various vineyards, but it's Cuvee's in the what's called the Premier Cru. That's not to mean demean the wine that you can only get Grand Crus or anything like that. It's just that they came up with a rating system, but there's stars in all different rating systems and all champagne.
Thank you, Rod. Per usual, I just like hearing you talk about wine. It makes me happy.
Thank you.
You managed to be informative and poetic at the same time. And I know some people want us to talk about the Charles Heitzig, so I'm going to go for it. This is the one rosé we are, and then we'll get back to the Bloomfield and West Bloomfield selections on the list. But this is an extraordinary cutout in their cellar, and you'll notice that it mirrors the shape of their bottle. This is a very interesting producer that here we go, another view of their cellars, evidently 8 kilometers of cellars. I can't even wrap my mind around that, you know. This is a producer that has a couple of interesting thumbprints in terms of what they're known for. They use a very high proportion of reserve wines, meaning, you know, if it's a non-vintage, AKA a multi-vintage, no vintage appears on the label, they have a base vintage that they're dealing with, the most recent. Some people use a small amount of reserve wines from previous vintages, but the Charles Heitzig house uses around 40% of the blend on their non-vintage bubbles, which is very similar actually to Crude that can go up to 60% if memory serves. And those reserve wines are averaging about 10 years old, which is, you know, a long period of time. And they are drawing from different vineyard sources, including Grand Cru Chardonnay from Auger, that's a commune in the Côte de Blanc, Pinot Noir from Ambonnet and the Montagne de Reims, and Pinot Meunier from the Vallée de la Marne. And this is an interesting cat. He ended up being known as Champagne Charlie. At 29 years old, he founded his own house. And we're talking in the mid 1800s. He was, or at least claims to be, in the 1850s, he went to America and was the first personality to represent the Champagne district in the US. And he wrote a letter to his wife saying, there's a rumor about me, an excitement, as they say, that we will greatly benefit from. So the press loved him. He, seduced New York society, the business bourgeoisie. He traveled everywhere in the US, including all the way down to Louisiana. He came back and made a big impression in England and Belgium as well. He ended up buying his champagne cellars after he was established for a period of time. So here's, what they like to share, the amount of reserve wines that they use, and the unique prestige bottles inspired by the shape of the Crayere. And Crayere is the name of a chalk cellar, and this is their entire range, but we're tasting the Rosé Reserve tonight. I got this from their information, but I like this particular view of Champagne because we've talked about, this is the Côte de Blanc, and we've been talking about this. We've talked about Auger, Avis, Cremant, right? Le Mesnil sur Auger. Some people say Mesnil, though I kind of eat the S. My French teacher taught me to do that. And Ambonnet, that's famous for Pinot Noir. We've talked about, let's see, Berzenay and Berzy that are right next to each other. And there's Bouzy, love that name. And here's the Montagne de Reims that has a significant chunk of Pinot Meunier grown there. Love this commune too, Dizzy, Cumière. So it's neat to stare at maps when you've experienced, and Epernay, where a lot of champagne houses are based, either Epernay or Reims. Oops. So I'm tasting it right now. And this has, depending on how I'm interpreting their notes, about 20% of reserve wines in this particular cuvee, 50-50 Pinot Noir and Chardonnay, but the color comes from not more than about 5 to 6% of the blend is red wine. So it's a pale pink color. And, it's been on the lees for a long period of time, but it still has terrific freshness to it. And it just smells like strawberries and cherries and brioche to me. I just love the smell of champagne. It's got You know, the yeastiness isn't bready per se. It's more like really high quality, you know, verging on dessert, baked goods or nuts. And then on the palate, it manages to be refreshing. But at the same time with champagne, if you really pay attention to the aftertaste, quite often the flavor swells. You know, once the bubbles get out of the way, you get a breadth of flavor that's terrific. You keep bringing up Krug, but I was lucky enough to taste Krug Ambonnet once a few years ago at a Krug tasting we did. And I remember Mark Jonah had to like nudge me and say something, because I sort of went into a trance. I was waiting to see how long the aftertaste would last. So great champagne can have a finish as persistent, if not more persistent, than still wine. I find this absolutely delicious. And actually, in terms of a gift pack, you can't beat it. I'm using their champagne glass tonight, which has a little bow tie on it. It's very cool, and it's a light flute glass, but the bubbles are still generating. And if you take a look at the bubbles in a champagne glass, they don't look like bubbles. They look like little pinpricks of little white pinpricks. It's very refined. Anyone want to comment on it? Who's got it in their glass? And then I'm going to sort of power through the comments about
Madeline.
Bloomfield. Yes.
It's Amy. I have a quick question for you, which is probably the most naive question of the evening.
I love naive questions.
When I was a young lady and a hostess at a very nice restaurant where I used to live, they had Piper Heitzig. So is Piper Heitzig a relative to this, or are they related? Or
not that I know of. Gents, do you know for certain? But I don't see, at least on Charles Heitzig's website, they don't claim any connection.
Well, the name is so unusual to me, but I mean, I just
That's a great question, because I get that all the time. And Piper Heitzig and Charles Heitzig are two completely separate companies, run completely separately. I don't know if there's a historic situation there or not. It could be two separate families, or it could be one family, two sides started up together, or whatever. But no, they have no connection whatsoever. They're both excellent houses. So I'm not going to say I prefer Charles over to Piper Heitzig or anything like that. I think they're equals out there in the business world trying to make their go. But no, there's no connection.
And you see sort of that crossover in names. It's a great question, more in Burgundy than anywhere else, where it's, you know, positively incestuous thanks to the way they split up the vineyards. But thanks for that clarification, Rod. I'm going to channel Patrick Mulrooney, who talked to me at around 2:30 this afternoon about the selections at the Bloomfield Township store. And they really range from the sublime to the ridiculous in terms of price points, if you take a look at this. But the Labriere is one of my current favorite all-purpose champagnes. And what I mean by that is it's just undeniably delicious. Price point is good. It is multi-vintage, but it's in this case based on the 14 vintages. I understand how they label. You'll see some R015s out there too. They're based in the Valais de la Marne, and I was lucky enough to visit, and the guy who owns it is just charming as all get out. But the wine bears examination on its own, and I believe at least one of the stores, notably West Bloomfield, I think still has half bottles, which are very useful if you want to buy a bunch of them for little Christmas gifts. The Bruno Paillard, I asked Patrick how he would describe it. He said it's a little bit beefier. This is actually, it's not listed here, but he says it's an extra brut level. And Paillard will display the disgorgement date on the back label. And they claim to be the first champagne house to do that, which is going to telegraph to you how long it spends on the lees. And also, they were among the first in Champagne to build an above ground cellar. So they didn't bother acquiring Chalk Crayere. It was established, you know, in 1980s, early 1980s, and now the founder's daughter, Bruno Paillard's daughter, Alice, runs it. So, you know, going back to the comment about the Drapier daughter at the beginning, she's the beginning of the, you know, feminine generation coming to prominence in Champagne. This is very neat stuff. And another one that I'm dying to try. I haven't had it, and it's pronounced Le Noir. This is a Blanc de Blanc Brut, so 100% Chardonnay. This is, again, we don't list it on here, but Patrick said it's a non-dosage. It's also vintage dated and not an ultra premium. It's accessible, which I think is a category a lot of Americans don't pay attention to. They are based in the Grand Cru village of Le Mesnil. This is a young couple. They have a fabulous website. It's worth checking out, and they take it very personally, including having their little son jumping out of an empty vat just for fun. But he says it's sleek and elegant grower champagne. Gosset, when we're moving into these guys, I did a little research on them. These are in case, you need to make a statement gift or you feel like giving yourself a hell of a present. Gosset claims to be the oldest house in Champagne, established in 1584. Now, they are not the oldest house in Champagne that made champagne. Who is that? I can't remember, and I should know this off the top of my head. Is it Ruinart? I think it might be, but they are the oldest wine house in Champagne.
Yes, Ruinart.
Ruinart, thank you. So they were they like to brag at different ends of the spectrum. Ruinart made wine with bubbles in it before anybody else, and Gosset made wine there before anybody else. Very long aging minimums. They age their champagnes for a minimum of 4 years on the lees. So a very rich style. Patrick was wildly enthusiastic about even their non-vintage brut, which he has in half bottles, both the regular and the rosé. A little bit more premium than the Lallier half bottles, but terrific. Laurent Perrier Grand Siècle and Paul Roger Sir Winston Churchill, very different styles for ultra premiums. The Grand Siècle, which is, multi-vintage, is ethereal, lifted, and it's a blend of 3 vintages. And the Paul Roger Sir Winston Churchill is, well, to quote Galoni at Venice, it's heady, explosive, and powerful. So you've got very different styles of ultra premium champagnes here. One more perfumed and elegant, and one more about dramatic effect. Denny, you want to talk about the West Bloomfield selections?
I certainly will. I feel like the caboose coming up at the end of the train.
The caboose is the most important part. And
I wouldn't go that far, but I'd say that a lot of great champagnes have been talked about. And I want to reiterate something that I said last week with Cabernet. When you look at this range of wine from all the different stores, you see the type of situation that we enjoy at Plum, where we have a lot of the common things that we all share and sell, and yet each store has the ability to cater to the particular demographic of their area. And, especially the 2 Ann Arbor stores, just an amazing selection of grower champagne. West Bloomfield seems to have more of a standard kind of a champagne crowd, where they're the traditional names. We have a selection of grower champagne, but along with the fact that we are also the e-commerce site, we have a lot of the well-known names and are more of those than we do the growers.
Well, the comfort labels, I mean, they really are. And what's wrong with that? These are great houses.
You sell what your guests ask for, and each store has that ability to cater towards that. So this first wine, the Drapier Rosé, and I want to reiterate just that Rod did a great description of that. The Drapiers really fill a terrific need that you have to try to introduce people to a champagne, a true champagne, at a reasonable price. And both these wines, the Rosé and the Brut, are really, really good wines, even if they are reasonably priced, which it shouldn't be held against them. There's no apologetics when you're selling down to this, but I mean, it gives you the opportunity to move someone from a $20, $25, $30 bottle of sparkling wine from a different area of the world to a true champagne. And it's more of an opportunity to try that. This rosé is 100% Pinot Noir. And as Rod mentioned, I think the Drapier sources are 80% Pinot Noir. So it's their principal grape. It's beautiful color, fairly rich, and a really delicious wine. We really have great success with this. Rosé tends to always be dramatically more money than its sister Brut, but this rosé is very affordable and really gives you an honest opportunity to taste what a 100% Pinot Noir tastes like. 3 of these wines on this, the Ruinart, the Veuve, and the Krug, are sort of special to me this year because in 2019, I had the opportunity to go to France and spend 2 days in Champagne. And it's really remarkable. A couple of those photographs that Madeline had on, the one that really strikes me is the picture of the stairways down to the cellar. Those may be 3 stories down. And someone who's had a knee replacement approached those cellars with great ominous feelings. But the concrete on these steps going down these cellars is grooved from the centuries of people walking down these cellars. And when you get down there, it's all lit up, very nice. You realize that all that electricity got put in 100 years ago, and these cellars were built with people with candles. And it's just an amazing spot. The Ruinart claims they have 8 miles of cellars underground. And it was probably the most spectacular series of cellars I'd ever been in. This particular wine, the Ruinart Blanc de Blanc, is 100% Chardonnay. Very delicate, bright, great flavor. It's been one of our most popular wines. I always tell everybody that when they're looking for a bottle and you have that jump from $40 to $50 up, I say this is the best $100 bottle you're going to get for $70.
Don't you think, Denny, there's this beautiful creaminess to it too? You
Oh.
can give it to anyone. Yeah.
It's a real overachiever.
Mhm.
Everybody it's a great gifting wine because it's comes always nicely packaged, and in a special bottle, it just stands out as being something different. And it doesn't stop with the packaging or the price. It delivers in the bottle. Both that and its sister, the rosé. One of the fun things about when you're in Champagne, you realize that these people make all kinds of other champagnes that aren't coming to our country or aren't coming to our state. And so these are the 2 that we carry, the Brut and the rosé. And yet they have this wealth of other champagnes that are available over there. Bruno Paillard is a smaller house, and this Blanc de Blanc is 100% Chardonnay. And we've had good luck with this as sort of a, I wouldn't say grower, but a less well-known producer. Makes very good wine. It's a more balanced, soft, easy, expressive wine. Comes nicely packaged, and it's sort of in that middle range where you sort of gulf between the $40 to $50, and then you go into the 140. Definitely an overachiever. We've had very good luck with it. The Biacart Salmon is a rosé that's extremely popular. It's one of those situations where I don't know about a lot of the other champagnes they carry. We carry the Brut and the rosé, but the rosé is a big seller. It's a called for wine all the time, and it's a 40% Chardonnay, 30% Pinot Noir, and 30% Pinot Noir, and it gains its color by adding 8% of the 8% red wine. Very popular wine online. Different style altogether than some of the other ones. A little more delicate. I wouldn't want to use the word off dry, but it's certainly not as dry, or it doesn't come across as dry as some of the other champagnes, especially the other rosés. The 208 Veuve Clicquot. This was the sort of a complete change in style with this particular vintage. This was a brand new winemaker for the 208 vintage. And the cepage went to 92% Pinot Noir.
Oh, right. They actually made this for all practical purposes a Blonde and Noir. I remember
Right.
that.
So this is 92% Pinot Noir. They changed the packaging. It's got a little different label to it. This has always been one of those wines with a great story with Madame Clicquot. But the 208 has been probably the most popular of any of the Le Grand Dames that I've had the privilege of selling. Much richer, more full-bodied, a very interesting style. I'll be curious to see what they do with the next vintage. But we've been very fortunate to have a lot of this to sell and had a lot of returns on it. It's if I had to pick a Tête de Cuvée in this price range, this would be it. I really enjoy this wine. And Madeline's favorite, Krug.
Yeah, only I didn't know I was setting you up because I forgot that the price had gone up a little bit on it. But someone asked me, my favorite, if price is no object, is Krug Grand Cuvée, right?
This was the last of the champagne houses we went, and they are very proud of what they do. It's very different from everybody else. Their emphasis, unlike a lot of the other champagne houses, which is, in maybe 3, 4, 5 years in a vintage, in a decade, they'll have a vintage, or they'll declare a vintage. Krug emphasizes their blend. The Grand Cuvée is what they're really all about. They make a wonderful vintage brut. They also make a very wonderful rosé, but this is what they're focused on. And when you go back and look at some of the numbers on the Krug Grand Cuvée, there have been blends in certain, they'll make something and they'll title it 168. So this is the 168th edition of this. And these can have as many as 100 different wines in them over a range of 10 different years. So their whole presentation is trying to present a Grand Cuvée that's stable and doesn't rely just on a particular great vintage. It's all about their blending and presentation. And yes, it's pricey. It's a big wine, full-bodied, and it really is, if 50 people come in asking for a great champagne, 2 of them will walk out with a Krug. Everybody else is looking for Dom or this or that. Krug is a very eclectic, very particular taste, and it's spectacular, but it's not everybody's champagne. And
But I find it easier to enjoy than Dom Perignon. I think it takes a more practiced champagne palate to enjoy Dom. I don't know if you agree with me, Denny, but I find Krug, it's specific, but it's delicious. It's easy to let it grow on you.
I think it's something that you graduate to as opposed to start with.
Thank you. This list, by the way, we designed it so you can print it out and walk into your favorite store and say, Rod said, Denny said, Mike said, here I am. Just keep in mind that the reason we organized it by store is because all of the sets are different. You're going to find the 3 that we tasted tonight, the Tétanger, the Charles Heitzig, and the Drapier at all of the stores, but these others are specific to stores, though there might be a little crossover. I'm going to hang for a while if anyone wants to chat or just enjoy fellowship, but anyone want to opine a little bit about what they found delicious tonight or what foods they enjoy with champagne? Because I will tell you, it solves a lot of problems. You can have it with foods that are considered non-wine foods that are really tricky with, spiky heat. You have to be a little careful of sweetness. But, I think Chinese food is fabulous because you have sweet, salty, and tart. Popcorn, absolutely. Popcorn, especially, I don't know how you make popcorn, but I make it with killer olive oil and salt, really good, usually pink salt and pepper and rosemary. And some people like to put cheese on their popcorn as well.
I agree with the Asian food.
Asian food for sure. Pan-Asian. But again, I think my very favorite experience with champagne, and I've probably said it more than once, but it was my ex-boss, Jimmy Schmidt, who used to make killer cracker crust white pizza with your, whatever cheese was turning him on at the moment, and lots of salt and olive oil and his favorite herbs. And it was just a murderous combination. Amy, did you want to weigh in on favorite? I saw your hand go up. Nope, you're just appreciating the dialogue. Cool. I'm going to miss all y'all, for the next few weeks, but I hope that everyone keeps safe and finds joy in whoever you're with, either virtually or, together. Rod, thank you for joining us, for being here. And Mike and Denny as well. I am blessed to be on a spectacular team, and I get sick of my own voice. Marshall, per usual, having you as a resource, a silent resource, is spectacular. I hope you make us a habit in 2021. Though I sure miss everyone's physical company, don't you? I really look forward to the day when we can say hello to each other, in person. And it will happen sometime next year, right?
Yeah,
Happy
and part of the
holidays,
function
happy
plan.
new year. Okay.
To everyone, stay in good health. We'll see you the third week of January.
January.
Yep, the invite won't go out for another couple of weeks, but the event is online. The wines aren't listed yet because I haven't tortured the wine team leaders to help me pick out 3 wines plus another list. Do you like the idea of the list specific to the stores? Because that was
No.
a recent. Norm
No.
doesn't like it. Amy
No.
likes it.
He said, this is a tiny country. Why can't you all be the same?
Well, you can argue with them then,
What's unique to Ann Arbor? I mean, they speak the same language.
They speak the
They
same
use the
language, but
same currency.
They do, but it's a different country. It really is,
No,
I
no.
find
They
most
just
of
make
the
it up in
time-
their heads.
They don't even
Next
want
thing they'll proclaim an independent Republic of Ann Arbor.
there's a thought.
See, Madeline, I think it's just we should get a bus tour and go from store to store
Oh,
and
wow.
get what you want.
Why not?
Because if there isn't something, being from the People's Republic of Ann Arbor, currently, I'm a current resident. I think that, I look at some of the wines and I love Jorge, and I think some of the wines that he picks, but I'd be interested in some of the things that are in West Bloomfield or Bloomfield, at the store. And so, what the heck, if we can, let's get a little bus and go around.
Note to self.
Okay.
Why not? I mean, some of our distributors, can we drink on the bus? Absolutely.
Yes.
The driver can't,
Yeah.
but the rest of us
Okay.
can.
I wouldn't want to be the last store they came in then.
Yeah, well,
Okay.
but I'd be
Well, yes,
the
you
wine
would,
police.
because the wallets would be wide open.
Oh, we'll just have a basket ready for you.
I may be 5'1", but I'm going to be the wine police in terms of everyone, being giggly but behaving themselves, no problem.
Sort of like a wine tour, yeah.
Yeah, why not?
Well, we're all very well behaved anyway. Yeah.
Marshall brought up about shipping. Keep in mind that if you need to send presents, e-commerce is based through our West Bloomfield store and easily accessible online. We ship in Michigan, obviously. We ship to 19 states. That poignantly does not include Illinois, where our Chicago store is located. But
They're a separate republic, aren't they?
evidently, but not as separate as Ann Arbor,
Yeah.
Jenny, correct me if I'm wrong, but the charge for shipping for a couple, 3 bottles tends to vary, but it floats around $20. Isn't that correct?
Depends on how far it's going. Obviously,
Yeah.
going to New York is different than going to California, but yeah.
Yeah, Manchuria is very expensive.
Manchuria is very
25.
If you have, I'm going to send a follow-up. What I'd love is any comments that you've had over I just noticed, Elaine, thank you for wearing pearls. I'm not the only one. And I wore my mother's pearl earrings just for all y'all, I just noticed that. You look very festive and elegant. If you have
I'm
any
wearing a
comments,
pearl nose ring.
did
Thank
you
you,
take it out so
Madeline.
you wouldn't shock us?
Thank you,
I'm good,
Madeline.
thank you. Oh,
Happy
you're
holidays.
always nice to
Thank
have
you,
you,
thank you,
Elaine.
Madeline. Yeah.
There's a list of states you ship to online. I will put that in my follow-up email so you know what they are, okay? And also, if you have any commentary about the last
Yeah, that's good.
year or tastings you'd like to see in 2021, please let me know. I'll be all ears, okay?
Garage sale coming in February.
Ooh, yes, the
Yay.
famous inimitable garage sale, yes.
Great.
We may have to do more than 3 wines, Denny, I don't know.
106.
Oh my God.
That's when we need the bus.
We'll figure it
That's
out.
We'll figure it out.
And thank you, Madeline, for sort of spearheading this virtual tastings. You've done a yeoman's job,
No,
and all the team leaders are very pleased to have been a part of this. Thank you.
it's my
It's
joy.
been a
What
highlight. It's been a highlight of a very difficult year, Madeline. So
What a nice thing to say. Thank you so much. It's been a sheer joy for me because I realized sort of halfway through the summer, nobody's in the back of the room. We're all here together, right? And I love that. There's an intimacy to these that I really like. But being Greek, this no hug business is for the birds, you know? There's
Yeah.
only so much that you can like send through the airwaves, right? But no, it's
Yes.
been my joy. It's been a great joy for me. So we will resurface in 2021. Please let me know if there are any themes or if there are any guest speakers you're, hot to have. Don't forget that the recordings are all on our YouTube site, and I'll put that on my follow-up email as well. So what am I doing? YouTube site. What else? I have to make my little list before I forget. YouTube, and I said I was going to send you
States we
something
ship
else.
to.
What's that?
States we ship to.
States we ship to, right?
Yep.
And ask you for comments, right? And anything else that occurs to me. And if you're looking for a killer Christmas present, in addition to shipping wine, Evan Goldstein's Perfect Pairings for anybody who cooks. Fabulous gift. Great friend of mine. I should have a penny for every book I've sold. All righty. Take good care, everyone. See you soon. Stay safe. Stay cheerful.
Bye, Mad. Talk to you soon.